What if the earliest Christian saints were not European martyrs, but African kings? What if the oldest Christian kingdoms on earth were not in Rome, not in France, not in England, but in Africa? And what if the evidence proving this has been sitting for centuries, catalogued, untranslated, and quietly ignored inside the Vatican itself? You know the names: Francis, George, Patrick, but history went silent on others: Izana, Lalibela, Alfonso of Congo. They weren't forgotten, they were removed. This is the story of 3 African kingdoms, 4 Christian kings, and a long, calculated effort to convince the world that Christianity arrived in Africa late, carried by Europeans. It didn't. History tells us Christianity spread outward from Europe. But that story only works if Africa is written out of the beginning. Let's start where the textbooks go silent. In the 4th century, while Christianity was still illegal in much of the Roman world, a powerful African empire called Aksum did something unprecedented. Around the year 330, its ruler, King Ezana, declared Christianity the official religion of the state. Not tolerated, not debated, declared. This happened decades before Rome made Christianity imperial policy. Ezana didn't convert in secret. He minted coins bearing the Christian cross. He carved inscriptions crediting victory to the Lord of Heaven. He governed a Christian empire connected by trade to Rome, India, and Persia. And yet, he is almost never mentioned in Western Christian history. That omission was not accidental. So ask the uncomfortable question: why isn't Ezana taught as a foundational Christian ruler? Aksum was named by contemporaries as one of the great powers of the ancient world. Yet Western historians dismissed it as remote. Remote meant expendable. This was no accident. When African Christianity threatened European supremacy, philosophy stepped in to finish the job. Inside the Vatican are more than 80 kilometers of archival shelving, papal letters, missionary reports, royal correspondence. For centuries, no one outside Rome could see them. Only in 1881, under Pope Leo XIII, were select scholars granted controlled access. Buried in those collections are hundreds of Ethiopic and Coptic manuscripts, African Bibles, lives of African saints, and records of Christian African kingdoms. Here's the catch. Most Western theologians were trained to read Latin and Greek. Almost none could read Ge'ez. Even fewer could read Coptic. And what is not translated is not taught. What is not taught does not exist. There was no order titled Erase Africa. Something far more effective replaced it. Language barriers, selective curricula, bureaucracy, and time. As Europe expanded, Christianity became a justification for empire. Africa was portrayed as pagan, primitive, waiting to be saved. But an Africa that had been Christian for over 1,500 years destroyed that narrative. So the story changed. Africa did not shape Christianity. Africa received it. Then came the Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. Philosophers like David Hume and Immanuel Kant argued that Africans were incapable of advanced civilization or profound faith. Now, ask the obvious question. What do you do with a figure like King Ezana? You don't debate him. You remove him. Look at a modern textbook map. Christianity spreads north and west. It almost never spreads south. The first African Christian empire is missing, and once Africa is cast as a receiver of faith, never a creator, never a defender. everything else becomes easy to forget. But forgotten does not mean false, and erased does not mean gone. When Europeans reached the mouth of the Congo River, they came prepared for pagans. What they found instead was a centralized African kingdom with laws, diplomacy, and a ruling class ready for theology. This was the Kingdom of Congo, not a tribe, not a village, a state, sophisticated enough to negotiate Christianity on its own terms. King Alfonso was not a puppet convert. He was a Christian intellectual. He studied Catholic doctrine. He built churches and schools. He established a royal court literate in Christian theology. And he didn't just receive Christianity, he held it accountable. Our country is being completely depopulated. Merchants take every day our natives, sons of the land, and sons of our noblemen. This is where the problem begins. A black Christian king writing directly to European rulers and the papacy, condemning Christian slavers for destroying his Christian kingdom. Alfonso believed Christianity meant moral law applied to everyone, including Europeans. Pause. Rome did not. Congo created a contradiction Europe could not afford. A fully Christian African kingdom with a legitimate king calling out Christian Europe for crimes against humanity. That African kings could be Christian and still refuse European control. So the language changed. Alfonso stopped being called a king. Congo stopped being called a kingdom. Not erased outright, downgraded. So Congo was silenced. Congo was too Christian to enslave honestly, and too African to canonize safely. So its story was archived, not taught, filed, not celebrated. And that silence was the verdict. But here's what they didn't expect. Congo was not an exception. Because while Rome was quietly filing away Africa's Christian kings, in the highlands of Ethiopia, someone was doing something impossible. 11 monumental churches carved directly out of living rock. Not hidden, not forgotten by accident. And when Europeans saw them, they didn't ask how Africans built this. They asked, who else must have done it for them? Congo was erased with silence. Lalibela was erased with disbelief. And what you're about to see was too undeniable to ignore. So it had to be explained away. The story was never about the past. It was about permission. Permission to rule. Permission to enslave. Permission to pretend Africa had no faith until Europe arrived. But once you know the truth, that African kings were saints, that African kingdoms shaped Christianity, that Africa was erased by design, you can never unsee it. Subscribing isn't about a channel. It's about refusing amnesia. The Vatican's lost African archive, what they still don't want you to see. They told you Africa had no saints. Now you know why.